Good morning, everyone. My name is Bill. Welcome to today's episode of Leave It to the Experts. Let me bring up our little banner here so that for your benefit, if you haphazardly tripped into this live stream, welcome to you. If your participation in today's episode is intentional, same thing. Welcome to you as well. For those of you who are watching today's episode for the first time, this video podcast series is where yours truly, my name is Bill, I bring in relationships and guests who are subject matter experts in a very particular industry. And the reason why is because for my own curiosity and maybe yours, the intention is to bring them into this conversation, live stream it with you, share with you this knowledge, the experience, so that it benefits you, perhaps, and or it benefits one of your first degree connections in your sphere of influence. So with all of that said, let me bring in my friend, my relationship, Omar, into the room today. Hello, Omar. Good morning to you.
Hey, Bill. Good morning.
So yeah, we texted each other just to make sure we were locked, loaded, ready to do this. And for all of you audience members, Omar, because I know Omar, I can tease him about it. He asked me, he said, are we suiting up? And I said, no suits, man. Post-COVID, we dress the way we want because our personality, our presence will speak for itself. And Omar, that is so true for you, maybe less for me.
Don't cut yourself short, Bill.
All right, so audience members, let me give you a tease as to what Omar does. Omar is what I call the professional matchmaker. He matches talent with the right demand. Okay. So he solves the supply demand problem just like probably many of you do in the business that you're in. However, the talent that he matches up the opportunity to is, of course, human talent. So that being the simple backdrop, Omar, why don't you lead in and talk to us for the people who don't know you, which is a very small fraction of the world. Why don't you share with that segment of people, what is it that you do, the business that you created, and then I'm just going to follow your lead and we'll move this conversation along.
Sounds good. So I'm the CEO and founder of Roma Hired. We are an executive search firm. I've been in the executive search space for going on 10 years now. Started it right out of college, and actually it was my first internship in college. And then next thing you know, I launched a company to do this. So we specialize in executive search, operating across the US, Middle East, North Africa, and European markets. We basically, to make it simple, headhunt your senior manager to director level positions and above for your post Series C funded company. So they have to be doing around 50 million in revenue with an ideal employee headcount of just under 100.
Interesting. So knowing that to be the case, what I think I'm hearing is you headhunt, you search for talent, whether it be front of the building or back of the building, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. We any search that pays above 120,000 in the first year is non-variable. So base and bonus, we will headhunt. Okay. There's sectors that we don't touch as often, but I'll cover that in industry coverage momentarily here.
Okay. So right now, today, in the times that we're in, it seems, depending on what you read, what you listen to, it seems that the employment market is really tight. Is that true from what you see?
Yeah, so the labor market's a little tough right now. The labor market always follows suit to the economic climate that we are in currently, and economic climate period. But right now, as it stands, we are in the midst of a market correction. Obviously, you're well aware of this given the spike in interest rates over the last 14, 16 months here. But it's seemingly opening back up. I will add that elite talent and just people that are damn good at what they do, excuse my French, are pretty, agnostic to the economic climate. What I mean by that is your best CFOs are always going to be in demand, right? Even if you look at your staple goods in an economic condition where it's not going as well, people are still buying Rolexes, people are still buying your ultra high-end luxury products.
Sure.
And they just cut costs on food and beverage and so on and so forth. So it's seemingly opening back up to holistically answer that question, but it has been 23 was the toughest year for us from a standpoint of the market and just overall climate, economically speaking.
I think 23 was probably a tough year for a lot of industries because things opened up post-COVID. Everybody maybe was in a little bit of a fog and just trying to find their way through, like, what's going to happen next. Maybe that was the reason.
COVID really threw a wrench. So to give you some color, to be very candid, the best year I've had in terms of billings and revenue was the first and second year of COVID. The worst year I had in terms of billing and revenue was last year. Pendulum, to give some color there, the pendulum swung in the favor of candidates heavily, from the standpoint of working remotely, companies having to pay to play. Your Walmarts of the world were not rolling positions out remotely. They were also not paying above what I would call, the median in terms of base and bonus. Now, even your Goldmans, your Walmarts of the world are having to pay to play. The pendulum is swinging back in the favor of companies. We see Salesforce mandated their employees to go back into the office, so on and so forth. But it doesn't change what we do. We're still, adding talent to these corporations that are hiring, but the negotiations have become a lot more complicated. We've had to talk candidates back down to earth, where there's a sense of entitlement, where they're like, it's crazy that they're asking me to go in twice a day or twice a week in the office. Why are they not paying 30% above market value? This is what I'm making now, right? It takes some good coaching, but just some very down-to-earth conversations with these individuals to help them understand that what we saw, and this also goes into VC, into valuations in terms of venture capital and private equity. You see Snowflake going at $1 billion plus. Those valuations have severely plummeted. We're just returning to pre-COVID levels, which were very healthy.
Right. Is it easier to place talent, search for talent that's front of the building versus back of the building? Care to comment on that?
I'll plead the fifth. Those are a little bit. It's a broad stroke to paint with those types of roles. It really depends on the complexity of the search, the supply. I'll put it this way: if a role is in Pennsylvania, I'll have a lot harder of a time to headhunt for it than if it was in Chicago, for example. So more on the supply of viable prospects in the market.
Okay. So what I think I'm hearing is it depends. There's many factors that feed into the best way to answer that question. I'll buy that.
And it's not a lawyer's answer. It's the truth.
Yeah. What industry right now is the most active for you? Whether that's the industry that you have determined that's what I dominate, or the other direction. Which industry is keeping you the most active right now?
So we go where the business takes us. Manufacturing has picked up a little bit. Healthcare, is always on fire. Pre-COVID, but finance. So the industries we specialize in: healthcare, finance and banking, venture capital, private equity, retail/CPG, food and beverage, and then sprinkle in a few other sectors that we work on. To be very candid, we operate pretty industry agnostic. The only searches we do not do are your pure independent contributor IT roles. So like cybersecurity, network engineering. I'm trilingual, have no aspirations to be quadlingual.
All right. And how do you and your team at Roma Hired, how do you guys get compensated for your services rendered? I'm sure that's a question that eventually is going to come into the conversation, right? So I'm going to help those people ask that question today.
Yeah, by all means. So I did not found this company to take money from candidates. I'll start off with that. Companies make enough money, we can charge them a healthy, retainer and keep the lights on for what it's worth. The typical fee structure is, so you have two types of recruiting. You got contingent, which is you get paid when the person's in the seat. Then you got retained, which is what we specialize in, meaning we get paid on discovery. So when we launch the search, we get paid. The first installment is, the total payment is 33%. First installment's day one on kickoff. Second installment is typically a month in, so day 30. Third installment is upon completion or closure of the search.
Okay.
And we base it off of this year's non-variable. So for good numbers, say a position pays 210,000 base and bonus, could be like a 150 base with a 30% target bonus. We charge $70K on our fees paid in those 3 installments that I mentioned.
Okay. That makes sense. So in a way, your services rendered is highly dependent on successful outcome. No different than my business, right?
Yeah. So a lot of firms, and this is something we do a little bit different. Your traditional. So I cut my teeth in executive search with Russell Reynolds, which is the creme de la creme of executive search firms. They operate on a standard 30, 60, 90, or 30, 60 on completion of the search. We operate on, so the first leg of the retainer is paid on day one. The second leg would be paid on the approval and moving forward of 3 candidates in the interview process. I try to tie it to some quantifiable metric of success that we are trending in the right direction. And then the third installment is the industry standard paid upon completion. What happens is, and this is a big reason why I founded the firm, executive search and headhunting has become very transactional. We've lost the human element that's needed to drive success, both with companies and with candidates. And so to just have them understand that we're not taking 2/3 of the retainer before they even meet someone, we try and have there be at least one of the payment structures be tied to some trend of success that we're at least going in the right direction.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Right now, I am under the impression that the industry of technology, right? The tech industry, they grew maybe really fast during COVID, and 2023, fast forward to now, they're getting right sized. They're getting a little leaner.
Yeah.
So would my perception be correct that there's a lot of talent available from the businesses of tech, especially front of the office people, leaders? Where do you see them moving into? Another tech business, or they're crossing into other industries?
AI is a big one that we're noticing now.
Okay.
Don't understand it fully, to be very candid, but AI is driving a lot of the talent, and to be fair, it's a lot of the elite tech talent that is shifting into these AI orgs. But if you're in tech, more often than not, unless it's like pure finance or pure HR, you're pretty siloed in that sector. It takes a coach like myself to be able to kind of guide your interview questions and answers, or your answers rather, to be more in line with another sector. If you wanted to go from your Salesforces of the world to a PepsiCo or so on and so forth.
Got it. Or a leader within a Salesforce subject matter domain crossing into a leadership position, let's say in healthcare, right?
It's not easy. No,
it's not easy. All right. And audience members, you heard that very subtle, but I'm going to make it overt. That very subtle, but now overt call to action. If you are an available talent, fearless leader in tech, and you're looking to cross over into another industry, or maybe stay within the same industry, it doesn't matter. Your obstacles are not daunting. All you have to do is connect with the right executive recruiter, a team that Omar has assembled so that they can help you see the big picture, maybe reposition your experience and your skill set, right?
Yeah, how you present yourself on your resume and your LinkedIn is how people will perceive you. So if you're looking to make a sector shift or an industry shift, realize the optics of how your resume reads before just assuming that it'll be very easy to make that move. It is not easy, but if you answer things the right way, there's an art and a science to this madness of what I do.
Let's now move the conversation to this next part. this is all about what's in it for the talent, right? Well, and kind of what's in it for the company entity that's looking for talent. Is the biggest driver of someone making a move, taking on a new leadership role or an operational role? Is it money? Is it the salary, the Benjamins, or is it something else? What's your opinion to that, Omar?
Anyone who says money is not a factor in their move, you know, I appreciate philanthropic and, you know, initiatives and what have you, but money is always a driver. I've never seen someone take anything lower than a lateral, unless it's your Deloitte's and your big four consulting companies of the world where they're working you 90 hours a week and now you're shifting to an org that only requires you to be in the office for 40 hours a week. But I'll take it a step further here. While money is a driver, people are aligned, need to be aligned with mission and values. That ensures retention and that ensures that you're not, you know, a hobby job seeker. When you're working with an external headhunter, there's internal talent acquisition, then there's your external headhunters like myself, right? You ensure one of many things, but one of the main things is that you're maximizing your earning potential. I'll bring up a specific example to illustrate what I'm alluding to. So we had, I can't mention the company, but we had a Fortune 5 client that was conducting their next head of real estate search. And we had two candidates. One was at the same company for 20 years at $800K in earning in their compensation package. The other individual was 3 companies, 20 years at 1.5 million. The client's budget was right around 1.6, being about a 900K base with a 60% target bonus. So when I talked to the first individual, same company, 20 years, her answer was, I'd be looking for something around 800 to 900K for me to make a move and be happy. They're both just as good at their job. So there's no difference that this person's better or this person's worse by any means at all. But if the client's budget is 1.6 and I price you at $1 million, right? What people think of you as in terms of your candidacy, you get what you're paying for. And so I just advise that individual to bump up their compensation expectations, knowing that the other person who's just as good at them in terms of doing the job itself was making almost twice as much. And who ended up getting the offer was the person that was at the same company for 20 years at 800K. She went from 800 to right around 1.55 to be exact, if I'm not mistaken. So when you're using a third party to negotiate on your behalf, it always looks better, similar to in your world, Bill. When you're putting an offer in, it never sits as well, or it's not as peachy of an engagement when the buyer is putting in the offer themselves. We know how to massage things. We know how to make it just sound better, and frankly, just make us look like the bad guy. It's much better than just you.
Right. So what I'm hearing is, as far as human talent is concerned, don't underestimate yourself. But on the same token, don't be that greedy. Come on, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's there's different strokes for different folks. I have a fiduciary obligation to my clients. I also have one to my candidates. Just because I could price that person, 700K below budget, doesn't mean that I would. And most internal TA, you got to realize this. Most internal talent acquisition, if they find someone that's half the cost, they're going to run to their hiring manager and say, "Hey, guess what? We got 2 people. This person's this much. This person's this much. Both can do the job." They're not going to go to bat for you to spend more money. They're not incentivized to lower their commissions, or they're not commissioned to close you at a lower rate or a lower comp. But they're not exactly. They do adhere to a budget. There's no reason for them to increase your market value. We step in as a third party to make sure you're maximizing your earning potential, and that's in terms of non-variable and variable. Non-variable being base and guaranteed bonus. Variable being your LTIP or your long-term incentive plan, whether it's in the form of restricted stock units or RSUs or phantom equity for your privately held companies.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. So as we wrap up learning just a little bit, I mean, what you do, how you do it, we could probably have multiple live streams for the audience members that want to benefit from, hey, I need to get more into the weeds. But hey, today, for a reason of your time, my time, and our live stream audience's time, we can only give them so much, right? How can the right talented leaders who may be looking for the next opportunity, who's thinking about looking for the next opportunity, or the company who's looking for the right team of talent, how can they find you? What's the best way to engage you in the conversation?
By all means, I'll drop my information in the signature here or in the chat for the group. But I'm looking for your passive seekers in terms of people that are just very happy where they're at. There's no harm in knowing your market value. I'll start off with that. So you can use a third-party firm like ourselves to just get a feeler for what your market value is. In addition to that, for your organizations that are looking to potentially replace someone that's in a role right now, that's a sensitive, confidential search. You're basically firing someone and replacing them with someone better. Using a firm like myself will at least launch the search confidentially and make the optics of your hiring practices and thereby how people perceive your culture to be healthier and not as cutthroat or competitive. But I just dropped our email and a link to my calendar to schedule time. More than happy to connect with individuals that are in the market, whether it be candidates or companies that are looking to hire. One thing I'll add, Bill, that I think will pivot well in terms of this conversation and moving forward. Outside of negotiating your base and bonus, one thing that is extremely of value in mentioning in this conversation is we help negotiate things like your benefits packages. That's a little bit more fixed, so bear with me in that regard. But your PTO, right? 2 more weeks of vacation time doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have a 4-week PTO package, you just bumped it to 6. That's a 24th of the year. So that's 5%, give or take some, in terms of your time to spend with your family. In addition to that, when we relocate a candidate, so Walmart, for example, they're headquartered out of Bentonville, Arkansas. When we issue a relocation package, I actually work with realtors and lenders, specifically Bill, to make sure that you are going to a place that you want to be, and you know that the city that you're moving to is a place that you, your family, your loved ones will enjoy. It's not all about you. When you relocate your whole family, it's about them.
Yeah, it really is. And at the executive level, it's the entire picture. It's how that fearless leader can benefit making this move, but it's also his or her closest support entity, spouses, kids, and whatever that makes that move a whole lot easier. So audience members, as we wrap up today's episode of Leave It to the Experts, I want to first start off with thanking Omar for sharing his time with me and really with you. So for those of you who may be looking for your next opportunity, whether you are front of the building or back of the building, Omar and I joke about that all the time. At the end of the day, what it means is you have a unique set of skills and experience that someone needs to benefit from. All you need to do is consider reaching out to Omar. His contact information is available in the comment of our live stream on social. So just, tap on that. I'm certain that Omar would be glad to start a conversation with you. So for those of you watching today's episode of Leave It to the Experts, who may you know who is an expert in his or her industry or subject matter? I'm asking for your help to make an introduction between myself and that person. I would love to start a conversation to see if it makes sense to bring that expert that you know in the next upcoming episode of Leave It to the Experts. So Omar, as we wrap up, I know from my dress and your dress, unfortunately today, unlike yesterday, was not 70 degrees. So we're at least doing the vest and hoodie thing. So enjoy today, regardless of what Mother Nature is going to throw at us, right?
Agreed. I'm an optimist at heart, and that'll never change. But Bill, really appreciate the time. We've known each other for quite some time now, coming up on a decade, if I'm not mistaken. But always someone I value in the industry, and looking forward to our next dinner.
Absolutely. So for all of you watching us, listening to us on demand as a recording, thank you for sharing your time. For now, adios, hasta luego.